Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. When it comes to home and office security, you will get the best contract, the best service, and the best system by staying local and turning to Safety Systems. Trust VFL JJ Surlis, and man, let me tell you, that's a VFL who was happy. I got the text from him after the Orange Bowl. He was thrilled with where it is. VFL JJ Surlis and his team at Safety Systems, they can protect your home or your business just like they protect my home. I love these guys. SafetySystems.com. All right, let's take a look at the schedule again, but with some different info here. I just went through the SEC crowd, and I'm showing you how many people they have in the portal heading out and coming in. And then next to that, it's 4 stars or better that are heading out and coming in. Justin, don't look. And then we'll look at the recruiting class, the recruiting ranking for each of these classes, just so you have an idea of a little bit of roster. So you got Virginia again, Austin Peay. Look, Virginia, Austin Peay, UTSA, and UConn, you should be 4-0 in your non-conference games. All right, so let's look at the conference games. At Florida, they got 23 guys in the portal on the outtake. 9 4 or 5 stars. They got 2 coming in. They had the 12th ranked recruiting class right there next to Tennessee. South Carolina, their portal is a little less active. They're kind of right in that same ballpark where you are in terms of recruiting. Texas A&M, 27 people leaving, 13 4 or 5 stars leaving. With their money, though, that may be a good thing for them. They may go out and buy more guys that are better than what they had. Alabama, Kentucky there, Missouri, Georgia, Vanderbilt. In case you're wondering about Tennessee, Tennessee has 8 guys heading out, 4 guys coming in. 3 of those heading out are 4 or 5 stars. 1 coming in is a 4 or 5 star. It'll be interesting to see how active Tennessee gets in the portal now that the bowl game's behind them. But my question, gentlemen, I mentioned Ole Miss as we went to break. When you are building a program, and you guys can agree or disagree with me, when you're building a program, Bob, if you fall back next year, because it doesn't take much, it's a play or 2. Look at Alabama. Yeah. They lost 2 games on the last play. Look at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Pitt had a kicker hit 5 field goals, including the last second one to win the Sun Bowl. That same kicker missed 2 field goals against you in a game that you would have lost in regulation had he hit them. It's a break here or there between 8 and 10 wins, between 10 and 12 wins. So if they took a step back with a new quarterback next year, that doesn't really bother me because I don't think it's hitting the brakes on the build, Bob. I don't think the build is done.
You got to look long term. We talked in the first segment. Does Josh Heupel get a long term contract? I think he deserves one. I think he'll probably get one. If that's the case, then I think you need to sit back and go, okay, we're not going to go 11 wins, then 12, then 13, and win it all. It's going to be kind of a bumpy ride because if with the exception of Georgia the last 2 years and Alabama a few years ago, everybody else has done that. Yeah. Ohio State was not in the national championship picture for what, 3 years?
Yeah.
So I think you just got to sit back and expect, as long as our program trajectory is good, then I can live with, we just won 8 this year, maybe get to 9 with the bowl game, to set the table for those years when you do go 11 and 12 wins.
That's kind
so
of.
I don't have a problem with backing up.
What's the coach think of that? That's reasonable and rational.
So to me, they established the foundation of a culture this year, or established the foundation of what they're trying to build. I think that was firmly established this year. The difference in this year, in my opinion, is you had a rock star quarterback. That you don't have that every year. These other programs have not had that every year. You're going to have some setbacks in the build, but as long as your foundation remains intact, then you can always continue building on it. It may not be the type of season that it was this year, but that's not a setback. That schedule's tough. The schedule's always going to be tough when every year you play Alabama and Georgia. It's always going to be a tough schedule. But they set a foundation. They're able to build on it. They're able to renovate it. And to me, they have trajectory that long-term, Bob, looks really good for this program.
Yeah, Josh, I mean, if you win 8, 9 games next year, and who's to say they don't win 11 again? I mean, or do better. But I'm just saying, if you took a step back next year, and you're back to 9, 10, 11 the next year, to me, it's all, until he gets it built, and I don't think it's built yet, I think that's acceptable.
I think it is too. To our conversation of what fans will think, that is what can kind of rock the boat in this conversation, because I think most people recognize Hendon was special in what he did, and having Jalen Hyde, a Blitnikoff Award winner, is difficult to replace. But even leading up to the bowl game, and now you've seen it, there was already some, well, squirrel, dude, just slide him in there. So I don't know that that changes the expectations of what the receivers will do. And then Joe Milton plus Nico coming in. The one thing that I would say to the culture conversation, because I completely agree that it's in a good spot, if you run into a legitimate quarterback controversy with a highly touted 5-star quarterback who's on campus versus the guy that's been around the program for a few years, you don't want that to rock the boat if that occurs.
Yeah, I look at it, boy, you got to have a lot of things go your way to have a season like that, don't you?
Yeah.
Everybody can't win 10 games, and everybody seems like they want to. I like Tennessee's approach of looking at the portal as more of a supplemental way to do your roster. Look at Texas A&M. That didn't work out. Ole Miss went heavy on it.
Oh, the
that
transfer king?
Yeah, exactly. So I like their approach, and I like how they do things. But there's special seasons that come along, and boy, those are so hard to duplicate when it's time to go out there the next season.
Right now, you want a reasonable goal? Supplant Florida as the second best team in the East. And then set your sights on Georgia. Exactly.
Can you stay
but
there?
if you can do that, remember how long Georgia was the runner-up to Florida for a long time, and they jumped them. Okay, you get to that point, and now that's your jumping off point. Okay, now we're going to go get Georgia.
That's a good comparison because Kirby's a guy who built it,
Right.
and people were sitting there saying, well, it's good, but when are you supposed? You're not winning the big game. You can't win the big game. It took a little bit to get past that. Let me show you the schedule again. If we can get back to our schedule, just very quickly, I want to talk about likely wins, likely losses. If we can do it, we may not have it. I apologize. I threw my director a little bit of a curveball. All right, so let's. And again, this isn't sure things. Who would have predicted you'd go to South Carolina and get your tail kicked this year? So that's what you better keep in mind.
Josh did.
Yeah. But Virginia, Austin P, UConn, and UTSA, those should be victories. In terms of likely wins, all right, Vanderbilt, so there's 5. At Missouri, that should be a win. There's 6. Kentucky, they got a lot of people in the portal. You always whip Kentucky. I'm going to give you that 7, all right? Now, in terms of likely losses, Georgia and Alabama. Look, Alabama's going to be gunning for you. It was a field goal this year.
Right.
That's a likely loss down there. Georgia's still the cream of the country at the moment. So, okay, that's 7-2. That leaves me, personally, with 3 toss-ups. At Florida, which was a one-play game, 38-33. I don't, Texas A&M, I would favor you, but I want to see what they do. I can't imagine they're going to stink again.
A lot of talent.
And then the other toss-up would be South Carolina. You blew them out 2 years ago. They blew you out this year. Do you think that's fair?
Yes.
7? Are those the 7 likely? 7 likely wins, 2 likely losses, and 3 toss-ups, or do you have different toss-ups?
No, I mean that's a really tough 3-game stretch to me. South Carolina, A&M, and Alabama.
Agreed. Now you do have the open date in the middle there, but still. That's tough. You guys agree with would that be your takes, or would you have different toss-up games?
The one I would be close to throwing into toss-up is Kentucky because it's on the road after you go to Alabama. That's a tough turnaround, and they have their former OC coming back along with the talented quarterback coming in to replace Will Levis.
Good point.
You can't replace Will Levis.
Well, as you saw in the bowl game, they couldn't.
Yeah, they just got shut out by Iowa.
Justin, as a former coach, you love the idea of going ahead and just penciling in wins and losses.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Do you even want to chime in on the ridiculousness of that?
Of
What we just
penciling in
did?
wins? Well, to me, you have no idea, based on the transfer numbers that you just showed, what these teams are actually going to look like. There's no way of knowing. And by the way, that transfer graphic is exactly why National Signing Day is just the most bogus excitement of all time.
All right, very good. When we come back, what was the play of the year? Who were UT's best 3 players of the year? Which game was the best coached? We're going to do some honors and awards next on the Sports Source.